Hello, dear teachers. Hello, dear teachers around the world. I hope you're very fine. My name is Andres Rodriguez from Ecuador. Okay, this is another webinar English program for EFL and ESL teachers around the world. I hope you're fine. We are passionate and dedicate time to motivate you in order to learn more. And these ideas you can use in your teaching practice. So remember, the better we learn, the better things we're going to have in our classroom outcomes. So, Mr. Ruben Garcia from Peru. Ruben, thanks for coming.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm very grateful for your kind invitation to be together with teachers around the whole world. We are always together sharing ideas, experiences, knowledge for the benefits of our students. I am very glad to be here with you all. I am ready for what comes, what the future holds.
Exactly, what an honor. I prize your words. So, well, Ruben, so for after this welcoming, I'm going to now you're allowed to use your slide and you can start. Now, Ruben is going to share with us a very interesting topic about um, ELT strategies. Okay, so he will be explaining us during the presentations, and you can ask questions, raise your hand, you can make comments. Oh, feel free and comfortable to do it and enjoy the webinar. Okay, Ruben, let's get started.
Great. The first thing I'm going to share is my smile. Yeah,
Oh,
because we have to be very, very active and happy for this great afternoon in here in Peru that we are together. And let me share my screen since I am in it. This one and here. Yeah, so it works. Okay, this presentation mode. Great. So you can see my screen. Well, this is the banner for today's talk. Now, look at this image. In which direction the bus is going? Who can tell me? Is it possible to know which direction? We can guess. But in order to really know which direction the bus is going, we need context. Without context, we cannot tell or say precisely. So that happens when we try to learn something, especially languages. Let's concentrate on English. If we have vocabulary without context, it's difficult to remember this. So prepare the scenario, prepare the situation to introduce vocabulary words in order not to only guess, but to be certain about what it means. What you can now know is this, because I'm giving you these three triangles, and there is one triangle shape that is missing in this rectangle, and you can get the shapes and choose the correct triangle. Yes, you can participate and tell me orally which one fixes here, 1, 2, or 3, or just type active participation typing in the chat. The same for the ones who are listening to us and watching this talk on Facebook or YouTube. Great, good answer. Number 1, yes, immediately. Now, concentrate very much because the next challenge is huge. Are you ready? Are you all ready? You have 5 seconds to tell me what number is missing here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes, you have the answer. All right. And the missing number is 10. Great. So what I'm doing here is drawing your attention. I'm catching your attention to make sure that you are attentive to what I'm doing and what I'm showing you. This is a good start. So we need to start by doing this in English, which requires specialized strategies. And at the most basic level, one of those strategies is to put yourself in their shoes. The shoes of whom? The students. Because we need to think like they do. We need to remember the times that we were students and we would like to have a great teacher. What is our ideal teacher? And that could be the policy for you. I want to be the ideal teacher that I had in mind while I was a student. Some of the most effective strategies start with common things and respect for cultural differences. Simply getting to know the students is considered to be an essential part of the process. It's important getting to know the students. Develop a deeper understanding of students' unique needs and the best practices for teaching them has many benefits, such as better and easier lesson planning. It's what we need to do. Easier lesson planning, which means that the objective must be clear. What do we need to achieve? What are going to be the outcomes that should be the best? Improve the ability to monitor students' goals and achievements. Satisfaction of making a difference in the lives of young people learning to communicate in what can be a pretty confusing language. Achieving learning outcomes for students, embracing best practices and strategies for working with English language learners offers some fundamental organizational benefits for educators. When you have a well thought out plan for engaging and teaching your students, you are able to more effectively manage your lesson planning and monitor what? Monitor what? Monitor their progress. Is that correct? So why is it important to monitor their progress? Mhm. Look at this word. Most of you must be familiar with this. Most of you must be familiar with this. Scaffolding can mean a number of things when it comes to language development. Language development. This is what we need. Language development. First, to continue the technique of their first language while learning language. This is what we most do, right? We try the students to be immersed in the English language. But this is the only time that they can practice. This is the only time that they can practice the language, the target language, in this case, English. So the point is to train students to become independently proficient readers, writers, and speakers of English. Allowing native speech can help students figure things out rather than go silent if they don't understand or know an answer. A scaffold is a temporary framework that is put up for support and access to meeting and is taken away from the students' feel success and masters tasks, concepts, and in this case, language acquisition. This is what we want. The language acquisition. How we get the language acquisition is unconsciously. We get the language. It's not forced. We are not forcing them to get the language. We are trying them to acquire the language. So this is very important. That's why, as I mentioned at the beginning, you need context. The use of sentence frames, partial sentences that include blank spaces where students feel in missing words or information is another example of scaffolding time techniques that help students what? Learn the language. In a broader context, scaffolding refers to giving students the support context and tools they need to learn new materials, ideas, or skills. So this talk is about ELT strategies to get the best outcomes ever. Cultivate relationships. This one is a non-brainer. No matter what language you speak, as a teacher, getting to know each student helps you understand who they are, where they come from, and perhaps gain some insight into what teaching and learning styles are most effective for them. For the students, knowing that their teacher cares enough to make the effort to get to know them can have a motivating effect. Don't you think so? It contributes to an atmosphere in which each student feels known and appreciated and is therefore more likely to fully open themselves to the learning process rather than succumb to feelings or reticence or shyness that can often accompany a lack of language skills, which is terrible. Be culturally aware. Why is this so important? Be culturally aware. Developing an awareness of such students' background, religious and cultural practices may also provide insights that affect how you interact with them in particular. At a very basic level, engaging in discussions about the different cultural backgrounds of students helps everyone to get to know each other and reinforces the idea that different cultures include many similarities and differences. An important concept when some students are in the process of acquiring a new culture and language. Each language skills across all curriculum topics. This is very important. Why? Because it is helpful for teachers of all curriculum topics in mainstream classrooms to understand and embrace the role of language teachers as well. Speak slowly and be patient. You have a lot of material to cover, but there is no need to rush. In fact, teachers of English language learners are encouraged to consciously slow things down. This can mean speaking in a slower, measured cadence, being a bit more aware of your enunciation, allowing extra time, an additional 3 to 5 plus seconds for students to respond. We have to be flexible for some tasks that we give students to do. The extra seconds give all students a little extra time to think and formulate a response. Researchers have found that typically most teachers give 1 to 2 seconds between asking a question and expecting a student's response. Larry Ferlasso, a teacher education lawyer and co-author of the ESL and English Students Learners Teacher Survival Guide, states the same researchers have shown that if you wait 3 to 5 seconds, the quality of responses is astronomically greater. Prioritize productive language. Speaking and writing are sometimes characterized as productive language because they both literally require students to produce language output, in contrast with reading and listening, which are described as receptive language. Though teachers who are not language specialists may not be aware that English language learners are likely to develop those receptive skills first. So we as teachers of languages, we need to become language specialists in order to what? To recognize the skills that are necessary to reinforce in our students. It is important to emphasize the fact that evidence that students are reading, listening, or understanding does not necessarily equate to progress in expressing themselves through fluency in speaking or writing. Use a variety of methods to engage learning. The idea here is to provide students with multiple options for taking in information, processing and making sense of ideas, and sharing what they are learning. This is often referred to as differentiated instruction, an educational practice that involves recognizing that students each have their own unique gifts and challenges, interests, aptitudes, and learning styles, and tailoring instruction to meet students' individual needs. Very important to meet students' individual needs. All kids learn better when they engage with material in multiple ways. Lessons that involve writing, speaking, drawing, listening, for example, give students 4 opportunities to deepen their understanding of the work. For English learners, those additional engagements also provide a little breathing room so they can work through the language barrier. Breathing room. So this is important because when you communicate orally, you need to manage the air. You need to manage your breathing. Because if you're asked the question, do you happen to know what voice is? How can you define voice? And the answer is very simple. Voice is air. And you have to manage the air that comes out of our body. Utilize visual aids. The strategy of using visual aids also connects to the idea of differentiated instruction, which is considered central to teaching English language learners. In this case, it is understood that some students are visual learners whose ability to digest and process new concepts and material is enhanced by the use of pictures, diagrams, charts, and other visual tools. The belief that combining non-linguistic presentation along with the linguistic component of each lesson benefits all students and not just English language learners. The operative strategy is here to show as well as tell. In addition to pictures, diagrams, etc., teachers are encouraged to write everything on the board so students can see as well as hear the information. Pre-teach new vocabulary words. Pre-teach. When you have a challenging reading assignment coming up, some experts encourage you to preview or pre-teach new vocabulary words that may be unfamiliar to the English learners, or even to give them a copy of the article or link to the material ahead of time. Build in some group instructor-led whole class activities may make up most of your class period, but it can also be very helpful to build in time for group work as well. This is because it affords additional opportunities for English learners to practice their language skills with peers in a less formal, lower risk setting. Respect moments of silence. Many new language learners tend to be a little reticent and quiet, opting for silence over speaking up and saying something wrong in a language that is still unfamiliar. Therefore, teachers are encouraged to be mindful of this and not be too aggressive in forcing students to open up at the outset. Very important. So, because this have to be or has not to be too aggressive in forcing students to open up at the outset. So we need lots of encouragement. Teachers whose work involves supporting the language development also have the opportunity to take courses that are focused on skills, techniques, and best practices, such as ways to integrate language acquisition and academic content learning, assessment approaches that measure student achievement within a linguistically diverse classroom, research-based strategies for differentiating instruction to promote student learning, focus on academic language, literacy, and vocabulary. Reading, writing, and vocabulary exercises are essential building blocks for developing language fluency, but it is only part of what is needed. Students who appear fully fluent in English may nonetheless struggle to express themselves effectively in academic settings, as they lack the words and phrases needed to connect their ideas and discuss them with others. If we teach our students the content but never provide them with the language scaffolding that they need to share about it, it's like we are giving them the bricks, but we are not giving them the mortar to hold it all together. Link background knowledge and culture to learning. Numerous studies show that students perform better when their home culture and background knowledge is incorporated into the academic environment. When children and their families are represented and respected in the classroom, they are much more likely to be engaged and successful. Allowing students to express themselves in a safe environment and learn from one another is also a wonderful social emotional learning opportunity that benefits the entire class, especially students of color. When we talk about students of color, we are not relating to the color of the skin itself. We are talking about the differences that all the students have, because we know that all students are different and every classroom is a different world environment. Educators should consider implementing the following tactics in their practice. Become familiar with your students' backgrounds. Use examples that connect to their lives. Represent the students' cultures with art, music, and literature. In this way of remote classes, we can have students from different parts of the country, even the world, with different cultures. Encourage students to tell stories in a variety of mediums: drawing, poetry, visual art, drama, essays, etc. Ask students to speak and write about their lives regularly in casual, low-stress ways without forcing them to share. Low-stress ways, important. Increase comprehensible input and language output. English language learners learn both through the language they encounter, input, and the language they produce, output. Students should also be given ample opportunities to produce language, and they should receive direct feedback to increase their comprehension and improve their language skills. Digital technology in education has opened up many additional opportunities for teachers to supplement lesson plans. The strategies for increasing comprehensible input include read out loud or play audio versions of texts. From low vocabulary and key concepts before reading. Provide a similar text in the student's first language. Go beyond the textbook and include artwork, videos, guest speakers, stories. Guest speakers is a great idea to have. Now we have the technology and we can invite guest speakers from other parts of the world, especially if they are native speakers. I remember the times that I used to run an institute in Ventanilla, here, a city in Lima, Peru. We used to be connected with classrooms from the United States. And in some classes of English, we have connection and we share our cultures. So our students in Peru were ready to talk about their customs, their, their favorite dishes in Peru, and culture facts. And the same, the students in the United States had to do. So we had information, live information in real time. And the students got motivation because they were producing, they were using the language. And they felt comfortable when they realized that the students, the native English students, could understand what they were saying. It was really, really motivating. Slow down your speech. Use graphs and visuals when presenting. Give students an outline of the information. Use closed captioning for videos. 10/2 rule. For every 10 minutes of lecture, stop for 2 minutes of student engagement. This is the 10 over 2 rule. Promote classroom interaction. This is very important. We need lots of interaction. When teaching English language learners, keep in mind that vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation develop faster when they are opportunities for interaction in the classroom using the language being learned. But many new teachers make the mistake of simply presenting a lesson and then pairing students up to discuss without providing guidance. Use question prompts such as, can you tell me more about? Let me see if I understand you. Following up on idea. There are hundreds of activities to consider, but here are a few ideas to get you started. Think per share. Carousel of gallery walk. Book clubs. Student interviews. Pick a side. What do you think or believe about and why? How would you convince someone to? Then we need assessment. And look at this online assessment strategies for better learning outcomes. Quizzes for better engagement, open-ended or essay questions, conducting drag and drop activities, case studies for improving skills, game type exercises for better collaboration, online polls for students' feedback, dialogue simulation, activity for communication, online interviews for building self-confidence, which is very important. Self-confidence. We need to have students that trust in themselves, that trust in what they can produce, and in order to communicate without any fear. And we say assessment in this evaluating the process, understanding objective and nature, planning for the assessment approach, communicating high expectations, encouraging reflective learning, promoting interaction and constructive feedback. And something that I found, for example, from this breaking through the screen by National Geographic Learning, the Dr. Joan and Kang Xin and Dr. George Mason University, is what we have here, teach differentially. So we can tell you that the things that are very effective in order to get great outcomes. Important. Teach differently anytime. There are some teachers who have the same lesson plan and they use, for example, if they are high school teachers and they have the next year the same classrooms, they use the same lesson plans. We have to adapt. We can have all the information. Okay, the lesson plans are there, but we can adjust to our new students because this is another atmosphere. It's a new classroom. They're not the same, and we can adjust different activities. We can have a variety of new activities. That's why teachers have to be reading all the time of the innovative ways to provide students the best strategies. Engage students in multiple ways. Re-examine your exams. Focus on feedback. Provide engaging videos. Be crystal clear. Be human. Start with what you have. Be aware while you are there. This is important. And provide targeting, yes, targeted support and feedback. Provide structure and a rhythm. Leverage the power of online discussions. And the bonus tip is don't do it alone. It means that you have colleagues. You can talk about the good strategies. You can share with the colleagues that we are doing today. We do not work alone. We have to learn from one another. And we have these three things, which is important. Before the class, during the class, and after the class. Before the class, identify the learning objectives. Plan the specific learning activities, assessments, and the sequence of the lessons. Create a realistic timeline plan for a lesson closure. During the class, share the lesson plan with your students, helps keep them more engaged and on track. And after the class, reflect on what worked well and why, and what you could have done differently. And right. So, in other words, we teach, we inspire, and we motivate. Thank you for your kind attention. I am here for any further questions that I would like to answer as you desire.
Thank you so much, Ruben, for sharing these interesting and useful facts and strategies. So, okay, my dear teachers, if you have any question, you can raise your hand.
Okay, good morning,
Good
Mr.
morning.
Andres. I'm glad to meet Mr. Ruben Garcia, and he gave us a lot of important things how to manage a class. And I think all the things that he talked about, these strategies are very good. And I think I pay attention to this webinar. So I'm happy to listen to Mr. Ruben Garcia. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for your kind words. And yeah, I agree with you, Maria Enriqueta, for this, for your appreciation for Mr. Ruben's presentation. Another input, another insights, dear teachers?
Hello, my name is Marisol. Thank you, Mr. Ruben. But I don't know if you can to share and say links about we can assess a strategy for better learning outcome. For example, they are Quizless and they are another's that I don't know if you know another different kind of links that you can share. And then we're going to put in these strategies with our students. Thank you so much, Mr. Ruben. Thank you for your knowledge.
Oh, sure. No, not a problem. Yes, I can send you the links. Most of the information that I showed you is through experience that I, I take notes of every time that I can innovate and I look for information from different books and online also, and I compare. And through my experience, I get the result, and then I just write down, and that is what I share. Because I have to share what I prove that works. That's it. That proof that works. Because I first experienced that, and then I can share that it really works. Because if it works with me, it can work with all. Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marisol, for your... Okay, any other teacher would like to make a comment? Okay, Ruben, I'm reading a message here in the chat soon. You know very well to Amer Ali. He's from Pakistan.
Oh, sure, sure. Hello,
Yeah.
Amber. Good to see you.
I hope you're
Yes.
here, Amer.
Oh,
Amer.
he's on Facebook, I think. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yes. Yeah, he's also here. Thank you so much. I see someone else is texting from the cell phone. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, so Ruben, I was paying attention to the to the strategies or the activity that you were suggesting. Yeah, exactly. We teachers suggest and we also recommend when something is working well. For besides this, it's essentially proof. So if not, in case it is not proof, it's difficult that someone else can believe it. So I understand when you said at the beginning that you need to um, collect, no, to put in order all the staffers, and then you select the ones that are um, sharing, no? Okay, I'm reading a comment here. Arpita says in Asian countries, teaching English language, we usually use. Okay, that's very interesting. They're not based on culture. How to say this? Here we have a question, Ruben. Maybe you can answer. How to assess students based on cultural context?
Okay, this is a very interesting question. Taking into consideration that culture provides us most of the information that we can foster, and we use in the language. For example, in the interpretation, then because many people from different countries can learn a language such as English, which has become one of the most important languages in the world, commercially speaking. And the way we interpret things according to our own culture, because we can have words in English, and in the way we interpret to our own language, we have to take into consideration our culture. In other words, when we use verbs that you have the meaning in one sense, like the verb have, and I'm thinking about Spanish, about the translation of have, and then when someone tells me that I am hungry. I am hungry in Spanish means um, implies the verb to have in that real translation. You see, in Spanish means tengo hambre. So it implies to use the verb have, because if we learn literally the words, but if we take into consideration the culture, how we express ourselves in our own way, is we don't need the verb to have, the translation of the verb to have, but we need to use the verb to be. In the same to say, I am cold, because if you say I have a cold, is the disease. So you have to differentiate those contexts. That's why I said at the very beginning that you need to learn the words in context, not in isolation. And the cultural context is very important, because how we have our customs also. And we learn about other cultures. We learn about how they greet in Japan, how they greet in China, the people. So this is what we have. I always tell my students, one is the literal translation of ideas of the words, and another thing is the cultural translation or cultural interpretation. And as I showed you in some slides, when I mentioned the cultural basis, this plays a very important role in learning language acquisition. The books show us, for example, in Peru, I remember that in the 70s, in the 80s, and the 90s, all the English books were printed in the United States or in Europe. So we have all the things from cities from the United States and Europe, and families living there But we have to adapt those contexts, those scenarios into our country. For example, if they talk about cooking, yes, they talk about cooking, preparing a pizza. But for example, in Peru, we have ceviche, so we can have that. We adapt it. So that is the cultural basis. We adapt those things to have our own information, because it could be more vivid, the language more vivid, are more motivational for students to learn, to express themselves, something that is their own, and they explore their inner feelings and they become enthusiastic. And that's the experience that I told you that I had from classrooms in Peru and classrooms in the United States. My students talking about their food, their culture, the same as the Americans, and they were exchanging cultural aspects, which encouraged them to keep on communicating. It was a great success. Thank you for the question.
Hello, good morning.
Good
Daniel.
morning,
Hello.
Daniel.
Yes,
Nice to see you.
yes. Hello, Mr. Garcia and Mr. Rodriguez. I'm Daniel Chunga. I'm from Piura, Peru. And
Great.
while I was paying attention to the whole presentation, and while I consider that all of it is very useful for us as teachers, and even as students, because we have to make the students first make confidence by themselves, and then we can exchange ideas and other things. And while I'm a teacher, and before to to teach a person, what I do is uh, talk about her or his experience, and then we start the class. And I think that we we every single day learn new things until the death. That was it.
Thank you, Daniel, for your comments.
Yes.
That's true.
Okay, so I think teachers, thank you so much for asking questions, making comments for these presentations. I'm completely sure that you are going to learn from it and put in practice in your in your school with your students. So that's the idea, to improve every single day. Well, before closing, yes, exactly, Ruben. That's what I really admire from you, Ruben. You don't lose your charisma and you're always positive mood, no? That's right, yeah. Okay, we teachers have to be brilliant in that way. So we need to change our mindset and use different perspective. For example, the positive side of learning is the humor. We can use the humor. I already read that even Stephen Krashen says in one of the affected filter, he said that when you create a good atmosphere, when you have good feelings and positive emotion, when students are not full of anxiety, you can do wonderful things in classes. Yeah.
Speaking of humor,
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like puppetry, yes.
puppetry. Yeah, sure. Well, it's very important because not only for children, adolescents, adults like puppetry, and we have combined these things. And I used to teach in kindergarten. I I worked as a kindergarten teacher for 5 years in a row. So I use activities, different activities, and I involve the adults to participate. Even why? Because um, who learn to speak? Even Americans learn to speak with Barney and want to speak with some others who speak clearly. No, Sesame Street, and things like that. So those videos are good because they are for children and they are very slow and the pronunciation is very clear and they can have that great input, no, in order to have, as I mentioned before on my slides, to generate that output for the students.
I completely agree with you, Ruben. So, well, teachers, to finish this, please, I will ask you to open your cameras, okay? Are you sleeping? No way, no way, you're there. All right, so this is our final picture. We're gonna say, okay, please help me. Can you turn on your cameras? Okay, thank you, Danielle. Nice to see you. All right, let's go. Okay, that's all right. Thank you so much, Ruben, for sharing with us in your presentation those ideas. And thanks, teacher, for being here and participating and learning from this session. We are going to keep creating more webinars, okay, for you to develop your professional activities that you make. Okay, have a wonderful weekend, Ruben. Also for you, my best wishes. Go ahead, my friend. Okay.
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you all for your kind attention and see you some other time.
Thank
May
you
God
to you,
bless
Mister.
you all.
Hope to see you
Thank
next
you.
time. Bye bye, everybody.
Thank you so much, Miss.